Good morning and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Policy Session on this April 12, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Schrader will be here in just a moment. Your first policy session is Environmental Health Fees Proposal. Our staff from Health, Housing, and Human Services will present to the Public Health Division, so I invite up Denise Swanson, the Deputy Director of the Department, and Julie Hamilton, the Environmental Health Program Manager. Commissioners, you are going to hear several presentations over the next 3 weeks on proposed fees for the new fiscal year starting July 1st, 2023. This is in preparation for the county's budget process. So we bring the fee proposals to you now because if you accept them or reject them, that will all be put into the budget that you'll then review in May. So that's why you'll see a series of these, of which this is the first. So congratulations, and I'm sorry, you're first, H3S. So Denise and Julie, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The first is the best, so we will set the bar high. And here's my colleague, Julie Hamilton from Public Health.
And you are?
And I am Denise Swanson, the Deputy Director for Health, Housing, and Human Services. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are here to talk to you about a very important program that our Public Health Authority operates for our community, which is doing inspections for restaurants, lodging, pools, and child care centers to really make sure that our community is safe when they're doing these inspections. And what we need to do today is talk about a very slight increase in our fees, which is basically their business licensing, to do these, to enable to basically operate these services. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie because she is the program manager for environmental health and oversees this program and our inspectors, and she'll talk to you about all the things that the program does.
Thank you, Denise, and good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm really happy for the opportunity to be here today and to address you, the board, acting as our Board of Health, which is the governing body of our local public health authority for Clackamas County. So Denise did a great job letting you know why we were here, and so I want to just start with some background information about our environmental health program. So the mission of our environmental health program, like Denise said, is to keep Clackamas County residents and visitors safe. And we prevent foodborne illness and waterborne illness, and we prevent injury from the businesses that we work with, and that's our main mission. The environmental health program is a mandated program within public health. The businesses that are required to be licensed by environmental health and the licensing structure that we set for the entire state is set by our Oregon legislature within state statute. So state statute requires counties to set licensing fees for environmental health that cover the costs of operating the program. And one of the responsibilities of the Board of Health is to review and set these fees. The environmental health program in Clackamas County has historically operated at a full cost recovery model, with our fees covering all the costs to run the environmental health program. This has allowed our program to be self-sustaining, and we don't have any other options for funding this work. The work of this program is done by a group of 8 environmental health specialists, also known as health inspectors, and 1 administrative support specialist. The state requires environmental health to complete a set number of interactive on-site inspections, follow up on any high-risk violations we find, respond to public complaints and concerns, provide assistance, education, and consultation to our business operators every year. And that's what those fees are covering. While the program is regulatory, we in Clackamas County strive to provide education and develop partnerships with each business operator in our mission together of reducing the risk of food and waterborne illness so that our local businesses can thrive. Environmental health fees are reviewed and set by the board in the spring. Bills go out in the fall, and per Oregon statute, licenses cover that following calendar year from January through December. So for example, when a business pays their license bill that they'll get in October of 2023 this year, it will provide their full 2024 calendar year license. So the last time Clackamas County increased the environmental health fees was in 2019, which was nearly 4 years ago. and costs have risen. But thanks to you and your approval of ARPA and CARES Act funds, we have been able to keep our fees flat through the entire pandemic. Other counties in our region operate this exact program with the same license and funding structure. The first table in your packet compares our fee for a 16 to 50 seat restaurant, which is our most common facility type, with neighboring and similar counties. You'll see our fees are the lowest, with the exception of Marion County, who intentionally chose to subsidize this program with their county general fund. And in talking with the other counties that are noted on your packet, they are also in the process of reviewing their fees that are shown and likely to increase their fees again this year in the spring. If we don't raise fees, we will need to subsidize with county general fund for this mandatory work to keep the program running. The business community feedback from previous year fee increases has been accepting, with the ask of, please don't hit us with a big fee increase all at once, and smaller incremental increases are much preferred. And please give us time to prepare. The second table in your memo of our proposal is we are suggesting a small incremental fee increase. So the difference from our current fee to the first year of the proposal for 1 year for this 16 to 50 seat restaurant license is a total of $38, which when you break it into monthly cost is less than $4 a month. So if approved, the increase is not taking place until next year. It provides us plenty of notice and time for businesses to prepare. Fee increases, as well as major program or regulatory changes, are communicated regularly with our businesses. We use email. Our health inspectors talk about things during their in-person work. We do mailings, and we have an annual newsletter. And I wanted to let you know, in our last annual newsletter that went out in the fall, we recognized the Board of County Commissioners and gave kudos for the actions you've taken. And we let businesses know there's a potential for a fee increase starting in 2024. And I hope this brief provides you with helpful background and confidence in our proposal. None of us like to increase fees, and I wish the cost for everything would just stay the same. But when it doesn't, we have a responsibility to assure the fees are keeping up with the costs and the program can do the work that we need to do. It's important we fully fund environmental health so we can continue our critical work that helps protect the health and safety of our community. Thank you.
So I have some questions.
Of course.
Gary, your light is on?
Chair, my apologies. Would you please convene as the Board of Health for this discussion?
Yes, I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Board of Health. There we go.
Thank you.
I do have some questions on this. So during the pandemic from the year 2019 to the present, this department has been subsidized with ARPA dollars. And then during some of this time, probably 2 years, a lot of these restaurants were closed, okay? So, yet the employees were continued to be paid. So I don't understand. The math just doesn't add up for me. If a lot of these restaurants were closed, what's with the fee increase? I mean, 5% every year for 7 years. You say it's $217,000 annually, but it's not. The next year, it's more, and so over time, the revenue coming into Clackamas County is more and more and more. Yes, everything is going up in prices. I ordered some pizza the other day. I ordered a medium and 2 smalls. The cost was $70. Restaurants are being hit hard. And it's going to be to a point, if the recession deepens, they're going to go out of business. And you say it's only $38. Okay, well, maybe it's only $38. Maybe the commissioners thinks that's okay. I can't think that's okay. You say this is the only option. I don't believe this is the only option. It's the only option that you're presenting to us today. I don't support this, maybe the rest of my commissioners do, but in good conscience, I cannot raise fees on an industry that has been the brunt of the COVID shutdowns with severe economic damage to their businesses. And we have lost restaurants in Clackamas County. They have gone by the wayside, and they will never return. And I don't see a whole lot of new restaurants coming online either because of the huge problems surrounding the delivery of food in restaurants. They can't get people. And I tip. Boy, do I tip. I never used to tip, but I tip now because I want those servers to stay working and help the restaurants and deliver the food and that people really like to have. We have some lights on. Commissioner Scholl, I believe you're first.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Denise and Julie. Thank you for that information. You mentioned that you have 8 inspectors and 1 administrative specialist. That's not a very big organization to do this, but as you looked at this issue of potential fee increase, have you looked at ways that you can cut costs in conducting these inspections? I have to ask that question because
Of course.
when we look at any potential fee increase, we also have to look at how we can make government more efficient. Are there man-hours that are not being utilized, for example? So before we get down to looking at that $38 a year increase and whether or not it's really needed, I need to know what you've looked at in terms of how you can be more efficient in conducting the inspections and the other administrative processes in your inspector section.
So, Commissioner Scholl, we also have Kim LaCroix, who's our Deputy Director for Public Health. What I will say about this is, because it's a self-sustaining program through the fee structure, we have 8 inspectors that are doing close to 2,000 businesses. So not only restaurants, but lodging, pools, childcare. So I think we're running a pretty tight ship as far as that piece goes. Kim can certainly speak to what their budget process is, but I think that a reduction in service is what we would be looking at, right? And so, and where we are right now is, I think 8 for 2,000 different entities is a pretty good return on investment.
One more question then. So then the 8 inspectors throughout the year are employed 40 hours a week,
Yes.
every hour of the week, engaged in conducting this business. Oh, is that right, Julie?
Yes, that's correct. And
Talk a little bit about like what a day looks like for an inspector and things they're doing outside of the inspections.
absolutely, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So thank you for that question, Commissioner Scholl. The team, we have everybody divided into areas, so they're not driving around the entire county. I've always been concerned about cost. Previous to doing this, I've worked in restaurants, so I have an appreciation for what it takes to make. I'm not owning a restaurant or managing, but I do have that insight and appreciation for what restaurant owners and managers are facing. We really do strive to be as efficient as possible. We've moved to electronic, so we're not printing. We're looking at technology and ways to utilize anything we can to be, like you said, as efficient as possible and to deliver the services we do in the least amount of cost to the county and to the industries that are paying the fees. Our inspectors will come in, they will schedule their days, they will do plan reviews, they will answer emails, they will call businesses that have questions, they'll take any complaints that have come in and evaluate how they're going to respond. And so that's kind of the office side of the work that they do, and then they go out and they are doing on-site inspections with the businesses out in the community. The state, we know all of the businesses that we license, and the state requires us to work with all of those businesses to do a thorough inspection twice a year. And then, like I said, if they're having a struggle with a violation that's high risk, they've got to go back and work with the operator to make sure it was corrected in a way that will reduce that risk to the public or to the customers. The businesses, like you mentioned, Chair Smith, are struggling with some turnover right now, and so there's been a lot of extra time that businesses are asking for. They have questions. They want more hand-holding, more information, more education, more support for training their new employees. There's a lot of changes to the rules that have happened in past years, so we work very carefully with them on whatever they need to get to where they need to be to comply with our rules.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Of course.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, this is a mandated service, correct, that we have to do as a public health department? Do we get any dollars from the state at all for this?
That last
Do we
part?
get any dollars from the state? It's a mandated state service.
No, they also, not only do they mandate the service, they mandate that there is a fee structure to collect the fees, so it is self-sustaining. And that is in the RS as well.
Well, colleagues, I will posit here that, I've been here a long time, and I have never seen these folks be anything but hardworking, diligent, and really doing a critical public health service. I understand the notion of fees. I've been through this many times. And if we don't raise fees at a certain time, we're going to end up raising them for a higher percentage later in it. And I cannot tell you how many Groundhog Days I have been through with folks saying, oh, we can't raise fees because da-da-da-da, and I'm like, well, either do it now or you do it later, okay, because that's the way it is. Our staff is mandated to do this. The state, I would strongly posit that we go to the state and say, maybe they need to be also helping to subsidize a mandated service. That would be one of the things that I would certainly plan to do with our legislators, and I think we're in process of getting a list, am I correct, of, or at least I am, I imagine everybody else is, of what the unfunded mandates are from the state. This is a significant one. It falls on our shoulders. I know these folks. I've worked with them for years. They do a fantastic job. And I'm assuming that during the pandemic, you still had to inspect. Am I correct?
Correct.
It was probably low. Well, tell me, how was that? Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. During the pandemic, we shifted depending on what was going on in the pandemic. Some of our inspections shifted to virtual and consultative. We also proactively sought approval from our state agency, the Oregon Health Authority, to suspend scoring so it wouldn't be as regulatory and to provide really heavily focused education for our restaurants, to also help them with some of the executive order and the mandates. When they reopened and did takeout, we worked with them on how to do that safely, and then we had to answer a lot of questions about how they were supposed to follow all the mandates of the executive order that were added to the requirements of other food safety regulation. So we spent a lot of time doing that, and we also assisted the county in evaluating outbreaks of COVID within businesses to make recommendations how to stop the spread of COVID amongst employees at their workplace.
So I guess one of the things I wanted to establish that during the pandemic as well, you were continually to work with different contexts.
Correct.
But you still had functions to serve that were integral to public health with this. And we did backfill you with ARPA dollars, correct, at
Correct.
the time? All right. And we also backfilled businesses with business recovery centers with ARPA dollars. And I know, because I talked to a lot of the chamber folks, that a lot of our restaurants were also applying for grants and opportunities through ARPA because the federal government, unlike our state government, realized that people were going to be in duress and they wanted to at least maintain some stability. And yes, we do lose some businesses, I know that. And I know how upset people were because of the mandates from the state in terms of when they could open, close, or not, the whole 9 yards. I'm glad COVID is still here, but I'm glad it's become normalized, and at least we can open again and we can follow other public health protocols, but Ben knows more about that than I do. So I don't like raising fees either, but I would be willing to support this package, or I would put forward maybe a compromise where maybe we do it for 1 year or 2 years, and then just have you revisit with us, because that would give us some comfort to know that. I think just to say it 5 years, I could see where there would be angst with that. So I don't know if that would be acceptable, but that would be my comments at the time here. And
Thank you, very good comments. Yes, this is an unfunded mandate from the Oregon legislature, and their opinion is counties are flush with cash and we can just do everything that they want. Well, guess what, Oregon legislature? We have 2 more commissioners who want to speak. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, so Gary, just to remind ourselves, because I see what the packet says Department, Health, Human Services, Public Health Division. We are sitting here as the Board of Public Health?
Correct, yes.
Correct. And with that comes responsibilities. I know that some of my colleagues maybe not have had to actually try to fit that hat on and what it means. So we have that unique responsibility. So I just want to remind our colleagues of that. So we're not really sitting here as the Board of County Commissioners. And Chair Smith, I think, is correct that this is basically a mandate. Well, it's mandated, right, that we provide this service. So it really becomes the question is, should the Board of County Commissioners in their general fund subsidize this activity? And as I look at the very, very last page, is that accurate to say that currently this activity is being subsidized by $964,000 a year? Is that what that means? That last line where it says deficit in parentheses? $964,502.72. Is that the deficit?
Right here,
Very, very last page.
under environmental health.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see.
I don't know where he's looking there. We're trying to see where you're looking, Commissioner. Are you on the memo?
Oh, yeah.
I am at it's under this grid here I'm looking at. It's environmental health,
It looks like this.
400404.
Yeah,
Page 13, yeah.
we'll get there.
Okay, found it. Sorry.
It's these ones here.
Oh, they're so small.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can't believe you can read that.
Well, we can barely see it, but that's okay.
It's tiny.
It's tiny.
It's not really user-friendly.
Maybe it would be if we did nothing, that would be the deficit.
I know the deficit for the next year, for 2024, will be around $200,000. So that might be the ongoing, because of a 5-year increase, that makes more sense, but we can get back to you with that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Numbers jump off the page with
Yeah.
me, just
Okay.
my
And I believe.
my geeky odd number
I
thing.
believe
It
that
is.
is the total for the full span
Oh,
of the proposal.
okay, very good, yes. That's the total county cost for the full band, yes, for all 5 years that we're looking at.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
question is, okay, let's just say, looking at the second column, fiscal year 22-23, it's $191,000. Where's that, Gary, where's that money come from?
So right now, it's entirely fees, correct? There's
Yes.
no general fund, there's no other subsidy.
No others,
Correct.
well,
Well,
except for
it
the ARPA
shows-
dollars.
It's the ARPA.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it shows that there's last year, or last year, that the deficit was $29,000, almost $30,000. So where'd that money come from to backfill that?
That's the ARPA fees.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
ARPA
ARPA.
funds that the
ARPA.
board approved.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there, so what's the budget look like today? Is there residuals or carryover for the public health?
Not for ARPA. So what we are doing is whatever is not covered by the fees has been backfilled by ARPA since 2019. So we're in a position where going into 2024, if we don't have that, we're going to be at a deficit of over 200,000.
So your backfill is equivalent to the deficit and not anything more?
No.
Okay, so it's the minimum, okay?
Yep.
All right, so basically you're facing a gap going
Yes.
forward. And ARPA is that termed out?
The money the board has previously authorized is ending, so you could authorize more funds, potentially. I'd have to check with Nancy Bush on that offline. Also, part of the funds were lost revenue that came to public health. So not only the board decision to specifically fund the restaurants, but also this lost revenue your division received for ARPA. So potentially you could use future ARPA dollars to fund this. I'd have to confirm that. But up to this point, your authorization is ending for this program.
again, just being mindful of the responsibility we have, and also the responsibility we have to the Board of County Commissioners General Fund, that, somehow this gap needs to be filled. And I guess that number that I asked for, the 900, well, that would be if we did nothing, that would be, well, we couldn't get there because it has to be paid for. I mean, it has to happen. I get that. We have a responsibility to do that. So, as the chair said, it's basically an unfunded responsibility in which we're passing on to the businesses. And I certainly probably factor in that a lot of cost increases factored into the $70 worth of pizza that the chair bought.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was trying to make my point. Holy cow, I've never paid $70 for pizza in my life.
Yeah. I rarely have hamburgers, so my wife and I used to go out every now and again for hamburger because she likes hamburgers, and so the cost of that it's crazy. It's insane. It's more than doubled what it used to cost.
Yeah.
So we have to bring a $20 bill for each of us to have.
Minimum, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not a sit-down hamburger.
That's cheap, yeah, it's $20 at the fast food places.
Yeah, I'm talking fast food, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I don't disagree what you said in any of this. I'm just trying to make some points here. And in your documents, you say this will increase to your budget $217,000 annually with another 5% increase. So you say it's a $38 increase on average. More restaurants, I mean, a 15-seat restaurant, look, you can't run a restaurant in a profit and think you're only going to have 15 seats. So I don't think that's really accurate.
I think it's up to 50 seats, 15 minimum, up to 50 seats.
Yeah, but what's the cost of a 50-seat restaurant?
So that chart shows 15 to 50. So we have it like incremental depending on the size of the restaurant, so up
So
to
at
50 seats.
$38 and you do a 5% increase over time,
Yeah.
you're at $50 at the end of 7 years, okay? It's up to this board what they want to do. I just think that all the money that this department has had from this very generous Board of County Commissioners, I think that this is fee increase of 5 years for 5%. Every year for 7 years is in excess. I've never seen a fee increase. 35% fee increase is what this means. 35%, but Commissioner West wants to talk now.
Thank you for bringing a really important issue before us. I really appreciate it. So am I correct that the bulk of the people you service or the businesses you service is restaurants? There's a list here of other entities. And do your inspectors specialize in just like certain entities? Because, pools are different than restaurants. Like, can you explain to me a little bit about the scope of the work and the average, I'll say, book of business of the inspector that they manage?
You got it.
What's their workload look like and how diverse is it?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner West. So the inspectors in Clackamas County are generalists. They have food safety training and they're food safety experts, but they also train and learn the pool code very well. We have just under 400 swimming pools, and actually those can carry a high risk of injury or death or drowning from a lot of health and safety impacts. We both our campgrounds and our organizational camps and our RV parks and our hotels as well. And so the inspectors actually do work in all of those programs and learn all of those codes throughout their own area. So my inspector who works with the city of Sandy, she works with all of those various entities within her jurisdiction.
Okay. And you said there's 8 inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they each have about 250 clients?
That would be the licensed facilities and the schools, and then we add on childcare, and then they also review all the plans that come in. And we've been getting roughly, on average, between 100 to 140 plans for remodeling or brand-new businesses coming on board every year. And so they will go through those. And then they also, in addition to those businesses, work with the pop-up food temporary events. So all the food vendors at all the fairs and festivals and public events, we go out and inspect and work with those folks as well. We'll check in with them if they need assistance before they get to the event. So the hope is that when they get to the event, they can focus on serving their customers and not have to worry about fixing violations if we find a problem, so.
Are there any regulatory barriers or anything in our code that makes something uniquely expensive but isn't necessarily effective in its practice that could save us some money? I know it's a little off the unique question, but sometimes when we get into the weeds of things within codes and regulations, sometimes things are obsolete or they're more of a burden to have to do and they're not having the outcomes that we expect, or we're not finding any foodborne illnesses in this area, so maybe we can look at something and it would save some time and money. Is there anything uniquely like that that we can be smart with?
That's a great question. So in Oregon, we work under the Oregon Health Authority, who supports risk-based inspection. And the risk-based inspection is based on FDA and CDC's knowledge that they collect nationally of what's causing foodborne illness. So when my inspectors go in the code book to a restaurant, for example, the code book is really big and it gets into depth about, the floor has to be clean under the grill and things like that. But what we do and follow is that risk-based inspection focus. So we're looking at the 5 high risks areas of things that actually cause the most foodborne illness and injuries most heavily. So if the inspection's taking a long time because they're struggling with hand washing or cross-contaminating raw meat onto vegetables or cleaning practices of equipment that they're using to touch food with, we're not going to spend very much time looking under their grill at the floor, unless we see a rodent problem. So we're really focusing our time and our energy and our efforts on the things that have the biggest impact to food safety and good outcomes for keeping their customers healthy.
How do we compare to the rest of the counties in our safety metrics? So are we having, are the bulk of our restaurants safe to eat at? Are our pools at the hotels safe to swim at? Are we having good outcomes that are measurable with these efforts and inspections we're doing?
Yeah, I support my staff in also being partners in education because I believe that helps our businesses understand why and strive to keep their businesses safe and follow the important rules when we're not there, not just responding to fix things when we come in. So I find that method to be more effective as a whole. We get reviewed by Oregon Health Authority every 3 years. They call it the triennial review. We've just had ours in January, and we passed, and we had no findings in our program and in our Brown Health. And they actually go out with each and every one of our food inspectors and watch them perform food inspections out in the industry. And they have an expectation of the type of work we do and the type of inspection we do and the number of inspections we do. So we have to hit those marks in order to keep the program and be in compliance with our Oregon Health Authority intergovernmental agreements that you guys have reviewed and signed as well.
Thank you. What happens if we don't approve these fee increases? What's the real outcome if we have to just stick to the budget we have? What happens? What does that look like in your day-to-day?
I can't imagine that we're not talking about layoffs of inspectors because,
How many?
well, 217,000 will be at least one.
Could the job still be done with one less inspector adequately? Could you still meet the same metrics?
We will not be able to meet the intergovernmental agreement requirements of our Oregon Health Authority for the number of inspections, or we won't be able to do a quality inspection, and we will miss important problems in working with our partners, or we won't be able to provide education, but something we'll have to give. We will not be able to keep up with that.
Thank you. Just for the board here, I have a comment, just noticing, I'm often impressed with how Marion County is governed, and I'm curious what the reasoning was here and why they did it this way, where they're, it says that but why? They're obviously subsidizing somewhere or something, but what was the thought process around that? I'm just curious if there's some insight there that we're not aware of because we haven't had that conversation with Marion County, but that's significantly different. I'll give up my biases here. I think public health and safety is absolutely essential. It can be a life or death issue. I have treated people that have had severe illnesses or surgeries and health outcomes or life-threatening and forever life-debilitating because of foodborne illness. Really a big deal. I won't get into the graphic nurse talk, but I know that these outcomes are a big deal with the health and safety, which is our number one priority as government, is keep people safe. I also am the son of a restaurant owner. You know, my dad owned a number of Quiznos back in the day when that was a thing. And when I was a young man, and when the family business needed help, you had to go make subs. You were called upon to put on the apron and to make some sub sandwiches. And my dad was a stickler for he was proud of having good health inspections and posting his grade and being very transparent about it. And I remember the effort and the work that it took to have that reputation and to run his business that way. But I also know the profit margins in the restaurants are razor thin. Chair Smith is right. My God, they have taken an unequitable brunt of what we put our businesses through during the pandemic. They were having to have restaurants in parking lots. It was bad, and it's still bad, and I don't know when or if we can recover from it. I'm fee adverse for that population. I know what my dad went through to try to sign the front of those paychecks so he could keep his staff employed. It wasn't always easy. But I also understand that we have to keep people safe, and we have to be able to do it at a competent level. So I'm still thinking about this. I'm a little torn. I'm interested in what Marion County did, but thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Gary?
I have some suggestions for you to consider, commissioners. First, if you do approve any fee increase, I would say it should be for 1 year, not 7. Sorry, staff. Let's do 1 year at a time. You don't have to accept the 5%. You could do a lower percent, 2% perhaps. You could also do no fee increase. You could fund this with ARPA dollars. I've been texting with Nancy. It is an allowable use. You have $12 million left of county ARPA dollars to allocate, so you could, for another year, use the difference with ARPA dollars. You could also direct me to use general fund. I'll find a way, if that's your desire. I would respectfully suggest we could reduce staff time, which would mean slower service without missing state deadlines. I assume that is a possibility. You don't answer that. Or can we return this to the state? Can we tell the state Clackamas County is no longer doing this function and return it to the state?
I do believe this is a part of being the public health authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's not an
Yeah.
option. So
That's right.
General fund or ARPA dollar, maybe ARPA dollars is a solution. For 1 additional year, use ARPA dollars if you choose
So are we
not to.
talking, if we use ARPA dollars, it'd be $217,000 for this
Yes.
year?
Yes.
And is it possible to set aside some ARPA dollars to the department, because we need to spend them for future fee increases for maybe 3 years? So that would be 217 times 3, plus 5% per year. And so we're looking about $630,000. That's an option too, to get past, and maybe the economy will improve after 3 years. Restaurants will have an opportunity. They say it's only how many dollars, but it sends a huge message. Really a huge message that, we're just kind of not paying attention to the bottom line. We all pay attention to the bottom line. I'm not saying that. And Commissioner West, when you talk about public health, yes, it is a big, big deal. We have been through all of the pandemic and the wildfires and the public health concerns during the ice storm. And public health is on the top of our minds on all of this. But I think there's a way to get here without having our businesses, who have been just ravaged over the last several years, to try to do something. We have other commissioners, Commissioner Savas, and then 2 others.
Yeah, so we're over our time on this, and I don't want to kick another can down the road. But I think there's another option here that we haven't considered. Maybe staff can come back with this, and that is, I want to see this. I don't want to have to come back year after year, okay? And I think we need to be on a sustainable path. So I would like to see a model in which we find out what the increase needs to be to make us whole now, okay? And then factor in a modest inflationary rate thereafter, because what I'm having a problem struggling with, going back to the very last page, that one graph at the bottom. we're in the green, we go for the red or the green in fiscal year 29-30. So how's that going to be backfilled for the next 6 years? I'm not interested in trying to come back here every year and dealing with the backfill. So there's got to be a model where we do the fiscally responsible thing now and put in a smaller inflationary thing as opposed to spreading the pain, because that backfill, you don't have a sustainable path until, a sustainable model until, if projections are correct, till 2030. That's not good business.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I've just been looking at this, and I'm hopeful, I did actually math for a change, so I showed it to Paul. Okay. So when I, so let me see if I could do my reasonings. I did take calculus, however, I did. And I was actually A+ student in algebra, but, real life has always eluded me when it comes to math, okay? So
You're
I'm just
fine,
saying
Commissioner
that, all right?
Schrader.
So
I am
any-
not judging.
I know, but in any case, if I'm right with this, I divided 365 like by $765. 365 days a year. That would mean a restaurant would have to put $2.10 operationally away to pay the $765. And then when it goes up to 803, it looks like it's close to a 10 cent, maybe 11, 12 cent. And then, so fiscally, it doesn't seem as if it would be, it's a burden. Any fee increase is a burden. But when you look at the overall, what you'd have to set aside for a year for one fee, it doesn't seem as if it would be undoable. I'm just going to put that out there. Because, sometimes it's just the cost of doing business. I get that, and I know we've been through a stressful time. I'll be honest, I like Gary's suggestion that we maybe do it for a year. And also, I'm not convinced Marion County is comparable to Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington. I think it's a far more rural county. It has like one big city, right, Salem? And they probably also have operationally, maybe under the umbrella of the city. I don't know how they do that with public health, but maybe not.
That's also
Do
the
we know
county.
why that's so low?
It's Marion
County?
County. It's the county.
It is the county.
It is the county. Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to know why that's so low. I actually would worry about that a little bit.
Well, they are subsidizing, so that's their fee amount. And now
Okay.
they are subsidizing, they
So-
made a choice to
With general
subsidize
fund.
with general fund.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So that's
Yeah.
really the reason. All right, that's what I was kind of wondering. So general fund, they'll do that to reduce costs. And I'm hearing that general fund we could do, but do we really want to go there?
There's ARPA.
And there's ARPA, but you're just going to be kicking it down the road. Because we can keep backfilling with ARPA, but that's not permanent money.
ARPA money has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. So it'd be for 2 more years you could use ARPA dollars for this program.
Okay.
But there should be some inflationary amount so we can catch up. Because all it does is spread the pain out and make the pain more painful in the long run. So 2 years out, the jump will be even higher.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. I've been through this before. It's like Groundhog Day. We kind of do it, and then suddenly you have to come back to us, and you're like, wow, we didn't.
This
we're
is
like,
why we
"What?"
spread out such a small amount over 7 years, because understanding the value of the board, we were trying to make very small incremental increases instead of a large right side,
There are
if you
2
will.
more commissioners who'd like to talk. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I like the idea of looking at using ARPA dollars for this next fiscal year and looking at, although it might be an iffy thing, look at Commissioner Schrader's idea to lobby the state legislature to present this problem to them that we're having. That'll take us then to this time next year, and you've been funded, no harm, no foul. We can see where we come out on the effort to lobby the legislature, and then we can look at this again. But it seems to me that using ARPA dollars for this next fiscal year takes the pressure off you to sustain your operations, sends a signal to our struggling businesses that we're, concerned about them. And we come back next year, spend another half hour with you, and take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
As I listen to all of these different ideas we're throwing out there to try to mitigate what we're dealing with here, the one that seems the most responsible, the idea is from, I believe, Commissioner Savas. It has to be sustainable over time. And kicking the can, as the old saying goes, I don't think is the best route. I just think that the pathway to do this the most sustainably over time, to me, I am hearing, that rings true to me, is the suggestions from Commissioner Savas. So I'd like to proceed with Commissioner Savas's suggestions.
Okay, I'll say this. I don't believe using ARPA dollars is necessarily kicking the can down the road. That means we would have to come back in a year or 2 years and take a look at the fee increases. I would suspect if we were to use ARPA dollars for 2 years, we go to the third-year model on your chart, and that's what the fee would be. And the restaurants know that they haven't been paying fees for these 2 years. We're not kicking the can down the road, Commissioners. We're giving relief for our industry that has been continually ravaged by the pandemic, and now they have real economic concerns looking at them. They have a workforce shortage. There's some restaurants that don't even open because I saw a sign on a restaurant here, a prominent restaurant here in Oregon City, closed today, no staff. The staff just doesn't show up. So there are just really monumental problems for restaurants. And we all love to, go out to eat every once in a while. It's kind of a fun thing to do. Gee, I don't have to cook tonight, right? And I do appreciate the work you're doing, okay? I know that you have struggled with this because you know where the board, a lot of us don't like to do fee increase. You have doing very good work. That's not the issue. It's just, since we are decision makers and elected from the citizens, that's where we're at. So I am not going to support the fee increase as presented, knowing there's an alternative with money sitting in the bank that could supplement this very, very important business entity. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just real quickly, Chair, I do want to get on the next item too, but I would just say that it's really not one or the other. It could be both. So I propose that we come back with what does it take to get even, right? And also, if that was done on a 3-year trajectory with ARPA backfill, I'm okay with that. And because but I want us on a sustainable path. I just don't want to kick the can.
Yeah, I don't want to kick the can either. I think we are not. But Gary, what's your recommendation?
Unfortunately, we are at a deadline, Commissioners, because I have to give a proposed budget to you in 3 weeks. So
Okay,
I
I'm going
need
to
an
make a
answer.
motion. I'm going to suggest something for a motion. I'm going to suggest for the next 2 years that we use ARPA funds for the fee increase. And then on the year 3, going forward, you pick up the fee increase. What does that sound like to you folks?
Chair, how about I modify that?
I don't know, yeah.
That's similar. So, Chair, I move that we come up with a amortized 3-year rate increase, and in the interim of the 3 years, backfill the remaining with ARPA dollars.
I don't understand that.
Basically, instead of a 7-year schedule, it'll be a 3-year schedule, with a modest increase this year being I want to get the most out of the ARPA dollars to give the businesses the benefit of the ARPA dollars. So you said 2026, right?
To
Gotta be
spend it,
spent?
correct, yes.
So let's maximize the ARPA dollar allocation and increase the fees accordingly, and backfill it so it's incremental.
I need to know an amount what you're talking about.
And I
I'm
know
having
staff would
trouble.
have to craft that. I can't do that
But we-
here on the dais.
But we need to get this decided today, I think.
I agree with the glide pathing with ARPA dollars and then creating the sustainable path after that to where it's self-sufficient, to where we're not relying on funds that are temporary and then they're not there anymore. It's like a glide path. It's like a blend of the sustainability piece from Commissioner Savas with the idea of Chair Smith about using those funds to give this business this relief. It's kind of like a hybrid. But you're right, we're not gonna, unless Martha wants to try to do that math really quick, we're not gonna be able to do it from the dais.
So that's my motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
I don't understand the motion. You're going to have to restate it, Commissioner,
I
with,
think we're sending staff back to do more work based on your comments.
I don't
Is that correct?
Well,
think,
the result would be that they could bring the math back to us. The motion is basically to come up with a 3-year schedule for a rate increase and backfill with ARPA dollars in the interim to fill the gap. So it's a blend.
I'm not, yeah.
I'm not,
Can I ask a
I'm
question?
kind of not understanding. Just a moment, please. Commissioner Scholl.
I would like to give the staff a definitive decision today, and I would like to push $217,000 to the environmental health program to cover the next fiscal year. And during that year, look at lobbying the legislature. That'll give us time to look at a sustained process, okay? That's what I would recommend.
Okay, there is a motion.
There's two motions, Chair, so the first one is the ones that need to be addressed, so just point of order. There's a motion on the floor in a second.
Who seconded that?
There's only one second with my original motion.
Okay, and would you please restate that motion, Commissioner?
I propose that we come up with a 3-year schedule of a rate increase that makes us whole and backfill the imbalance with ARPA dollars.
And who seconded that?
I did.
Commissioner West, okay. I'm not understanding how that works because a rate increase and then backfilling with ARPA dollars, I'm not understanding what that's going to look like. Gary, can you explain that?
I feel staff's already done that. They're recommending a 5% increase over 7 years covers the gap. Granted, this document is confusing on your last page here, which is causing all the concern here. I don't feel we've adequately explained that well. But from what I understand, the 5% over 7 years gives you a sustainable program in 7 years. But regardless, we've confused the board if that's true or not. Commissioners, with great respect, I do need an answer today how we're funding this program next
Okay,
year.
we're going to take a vote. There's been a motion and a second. Tony, call the poll.
Commissioner Scholl,
No.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
No, motion passes 3-2.
We'll bring the correct numbers.
All right,
So
thank
we'll have to
you.
come back next week,
Okay,
ASAP.
Okay.
Your staff report's due in 2 hours.
okay.
Okay?
Oh, okay. We'll get
Sorry.
right on that.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry we put you,
I think we understand. I think what you want is you want to make the fee increase larger, essentially, over a shorter period of time.
Yeah, because otherwise you can't backfill after 2026.
Right.
Okay, we're going to move on, Commissioners. We've
Thank you.
said enough on this topic. We have a very important topic coming up. Gary, what's next? And Commissioners, I suggest we plan on staying until noon today.
okay, and we should, by the way, still go to the legislature, Commissioner Shaw, and talk to our delegation and say, when other unfunded, make a list of all the unfunded mandates and ask them why we're,
Okay.
why they're doing this to us.
Welcome, Gary, you're up.
Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I'll recess as the Health Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next policy session, I-205 Toll Project Environmental Assessment Finding Summary and Letter of Comment. Dan Johnson and Jamie Stasny from Transportation and Development will present. Go ahead.
Well, seeing we only have 6 minutes to talk about this stuff, just messing.
You get to stay till noon.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, thank you so much for the time. I'm going to do a quick introduction and hand it over to Jamie to talk about a couple things in more detail. I just want to highlight the fact that there are a lot of discussions going on around tolling around the region. This specific discussion with you today is simply about authorization of your letter, which then will have technical comments that we'll discuss next week. That's next week's discussion. And getting authorization on your letter today, and/or assessing any revisions you'd like to see, okay? And we can also bring that back next week as well, if we need to. Just to make sure we're clear, the deadline for these comments is still April 21st, and we have a schedule that gets us on that glide path. And so basically, there's a couple things. One, we've included a summary of the findings, kind of that basis for the technical letter, kind of those higher at a 50,000-foot level, which is attachment A. And then we have a comment letter for your review, which is attachment B. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Stasny to kind of run through some of the specifics. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Back in front of you today to provide a high-level overview of our EA findings with a little more detail than what's in your packet. We'll also be talking about the draft letter that's in your packet today, to Dan's point. So as you know, 60 days is not a lot of time to review over 2,000 pages. Hence your 2 letters requesting extensions of time for this review period. We received a letter denying that extension request, so we will not be receiving an extension of time. Therefore, the comment period will end on April 21st. So just want to make sure that's on the record. We didn't have enough time, but we did a great job with the time we have. We have an amazing team working on this review, as you all know, and that has yielded a draft of a 40-page letter, which you will see will be published on Friday for our policy session next week. So that's the technical piece that'll be coming. Before today, focused on the EA findings, I wanted to say we have serious concerns about procedural issues and deficiencies. Those have all been uncovered in the short amount of time for review. Also, we have concerns about foundational assumptions that were made in the analysis. So the EA essentially analyzes the I-205 facility itself, but does very little analysis of the impacts to the local communities. They just kind of skim over what's going to happen. So that's overarching concern. The next big issue is safety. Because trips will be moving from the mainline facility into the local communities, the safety of those facilities will be decreased. This does not align with what ODOT is saying publicly about the benefits of safety that will be seen on the 205 facility. So when those trips are shifted off into the local communities, those people who are walking or biking will be most impacted, and often those are the most vulnerable members of our community. So there will be severe impacts to their health. There will also be financial impacts, and those have not been analyzed well either. The economic impacts to the local communities have not been analyzed at a depth that is acceptable. The next item I wanted to bring up is that ODOT analyzes what transportation in this area will look like in 2027 and 2045. That is a requirement of the EA. But the only scenario that is likely to come true in their analysis is what is called pre-completion tolling. That is their intention to turn tolls on before they begin construction of the third lane. That was barely analyzed. So they have a couple of high-level comments about that, but they didn't go deep into depth of what that looks like to our communities, and it will be even more impactful than the analysis shows for 2027 or 2045. That is a big problem. We have a lot of questions about that and concerns. So overarching comment again, diversion, all of those trips going into the local communities. ODOT is asserting that they will be mitigating those impacts. Unfortunately, the mitigations that they're proposing are poorly designed. There is no commitment to funding them or constructing them. That is a big problem and raises a lot of concern. They also discuss a monitoring program, which is not defined in the EA, essentially a program that would watch to see if things get worse and at such time would initiate implementation of the mitigation. There's no information about what that looks like. So really ill-defined mitigations. And then finally, I'll share ODOT is analyzing these different scenarios, but they are not looking at what is called the Regional Mobility Pricing Program. So they're planning to implement tolling on 205 in 2024, and then right behind it in 2025, they are asserting that they will be implementing tolling on the rest of 205 and all of I-5. Yet the analysis includes no information about the Regional Mobility Pricing Program. No modeling, no assumption of trips, no assumptions about distribution of trips. So the analysis they're doing on 205 is essentially in a bubble. They're just looking about what this means to 205, even though they're in the EA process on the Regional Mobility Pricing Program as we speak. So those are some of the major concerns that are articulated in your letter. And I'm happy to answer questions about those, but wanted to let you know your draft letter is tailored specifically to this EA process. As Dan said, lots going on regarding tolling in the region. In order for your comments to be required to be addressed by ODOT and FHWA, they must be salient to the EA. This letter is to articulate those points. This is a cover letter, as Dan said, that will have the technical letter appended to it. And I'll just share one last thing, which is next steps. After the comment period ends, ODOT FHWA will take a look at all the comments that were received. They will analyze which ones they need to respond to. They will determine if they need to do additional analysis, which would likely be in the form of a revised EA. Their intention is to issue that revised EA later this year and to request a finding of no significant impact from FHWA. As you'll see in your letter, there is a request for them to elevate the process to an environmental impact statement. That process has higher bar requirements for public engagement, outreach, as well as analysis and alternatives, scenario analysis. So just wanted to share those pieces. Happy to answer questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very good presentation today. I'm sure commissioners want to comment. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, great job on the letter and great job on your work. Really appreciate all the work you're doing. Our ODOT staff, Jamie, Mike, Dan, great work. For those of you who don't know and those that are watching this, I mean, I started off as a teenager working in a air quality laboratory testing and R&D laboratory on emissions, frankly, in the state of California. So I have spent my entire career in that world of emissions, and the terminology in that world is significantly different than the terminology in our environment. And the metric or the terminology I think that best fits to at least explain to people why I think this would result in higher emissions is the metric of VHT, which is vehicle hours traveled. So for example, if you're going on a freeway and you're taking a freeway trip, and that trip is 20 minutes by freeway and it's 30 minutes on the surface roads, that vehicle hours traveled increases by 10 minutes, and the emission output is increased because that driving is not steady, it's not as efficient on the freeway. So the air quality emissions are significantly higher than it would be otherwise on a 20-minute trip. And not only that, but you're also using more fuel. So that said, I even did a quick inquiry, and you've been alerted to that maybe that wasn't looked at or mentioned. So somewhere, maybe we can find some way of inserting that, you know, obviously the EA doesn't point that out that I could find. So if the EA doesn't point that out, then maybe it's just something we put in there somewhere that vehicle hours traveled has not been analyzed, and we believe that diversion will increase vehicle hours traveled and therefore increase emissions and not meet our climate goals. Essentially paraphrasing what that might be. So you can wordsmith it all you want. That's my suggestion for the letter. Other than that, I think it's pretty awesome. So Chair, if you would all indulge me, I want to make a little bit larger statement here from all the inputs. So if you'll all indulge me, I just really think this issue about diversion, that is going to be a result of tolling. Will take it from approximately 6 to 7 hours of diversion a day due to rush hour and the bottleneck to 24/7. That's a 3.5-fold increase in diversion, meaning every hour of every day, people will be incented to divert. So that's a 3-fold increase there. And what that works out to in the math and the air quality issues and the cost to people, all that is significant. I do know that because of COVID, that transparency in government, the bar was, essentially, effectively lowered. Not that we did it deliberately, but as a result of COVID. And in the state legislature, when HB 3055 was being rolled out, we did not have access to our state legislature as we normally did, even local governments. We all suffered through that. And I don't think that there was a healthy discussion on HB 3055, and I think some mistakes were made thoroughly. HB 3055 not only was a bill that covered a number of things, but it was really that embedded tolling and really was a cement that glued it all together for there forward. As I learned yesterday, HB 2098 is a new bill in which they want to talk about a transportation bill that'll help fund the interstate bridge with tolling and a transportation package in 2025. And I'm also learned as of yesterday that it's very likely that the legislature will not hear transportation bills. Apparently not willing to have a discussion or scheduling a discussion, and I'm very concerned about that. So this is more of a political statement I'm here making today. when are we going to have a conversation about this? When is our lawmakers, our state legislature, going to have a conversation? Apparently, they don't seem to be interested in doing that right now. And I think the implications of this are significant. There's no excuse, frankly, not to have, again, a public hearing on some of the bills that our lawmakers and our staff and all the public dollars that go into what the legislature does in their activities, and to have the bills out there related to an issue that is so important to people. Local polling is important to people, a significant important. 90% of the folks out there are opposed to tolling, and yet we're not even having a discussion about it, or they're not having a discussion. So I think that's unacceptable. With that said, I just want to reckon, again, a personal note here. Yesterday was the 22 years since my mom and my brother were killed in a traffic accident. So I say that because safety is a big issue. It's a big issue for me, and transportation safety is a big issue. It was suggested maybe in the state legislature, a legislator suggested again, I guess I heard on Monday, that Clackamas County asked for tolling. I don't think so.
No.
We didn't ask for tolling as a means to fund I-205. And I would like to get to the bottom of it and find out who actually, if that claim is made, then who was that person that asked for it, right? Because it's got to be a person, or it's got to be a letter, or it's got to be something. So I want to get to the bottom of that. But I reckon the other thing was suggested that, oh, it'll be okay. You'll get tolling. It'll hurt, but you'll feel better tomorrow, right? Not so much, folks. Or you're just making this up. It's not that bad. Well, I have here before you a newspaper article from the West Linn Tidings in 2016, before HB 2017 was passed, okay? And you can just pass along and let my colleagues read the article. But basically, a lot of the article is about the third lane of I-205, the third lane being, and in the background is the street sign on Willamette Falls Drive and 10th Street. And if any of you have been there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, any day of the week in that year on that street, you would have seen car after car after car for over an hour, 2 hours, trying to get on the on-ramp, going around, the third lane of I-205. What's cited in there is the former West Linn Police Sergeant, Dave Kempis, who's talking about the traffic accidents and the safety issues, and that's the theme here, safety, right? It's supposed to be a high priority for us locally, it's supposed to be a high priority for ODOT, but apparently it's not a high priority, because if they did, they'd be looking at the data. I didn't bring the stack of police reports from all the accidents from just a 2-year period. I didn't bring with that me today, but I did bring this. And it's 2 pages, you know, it's got the top of the fold and on the second page, and you can read all of that at your leisure. But frankly, folks, safety is an imperative, and that's, to me, that's significant. And the premise of their study says in 2019, that tolling will be no worse than it was in 2019. Well, in 2016, it was outrageously bad. In 2017, it was worse, followed by 2018 and 2019. So folks, I think I'm prepared to do whatever we can, the legislature, and I'm trying to make phone calls. I hope I get some of those calls returned, and I'll be making more phone calls, but we need to have a hearing on this. If we don't have a hearing, we need to hold some town halls and get as many people interested in this and have them call their state legislators, because this is a real issue. We didn't fabricate this after they thought of tolling.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Other commissioners have comments on this as well. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good morning. The environmental analysis on I-205 conducted by ODOT appears to me to be done through rose-colored glasses. The analysis looks to me like it reflects an outcome that ODOT wanted to see. The report says that tolling and diversion would cost our local businesses around I-205 $3 million a year. People I've talked to say you can probably multiply that by 5 or 6 or 8 times. It understates the safety impacts, understates the air quality impacts, and as far as some Clackamas County asking for tolling, my question would be, Clackamas County on which planet? It's not this one. So I support your attachment B letter to ODOT from the Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Yes, we all have comments on that. Thank you, Commissioner Schull. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner Savas. I always appreciate your in-depth knowledge of this, and thank you, staff, because you guys are always spot on, and your assertions are fantastic. A couple of things. I am aware that PacWest has a lobbyist working to kill tolling down in Salem. I don't know if we're aware of that or not, but they're trying to be very aggressive in making that happen. The second piece is this afternoon at 4:30 at the Home Builders, there's going to be a discussion of tolling at 4:30. So I wanted people to be here. I'll be attending this afternoon to listen to the presentation. So I don't know if you're aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, great.
And where's that, Commissioner Schrader?
It's at the Home Builders at 4:30. It's with the Willamette Democrats have asked to have.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. And so I am attending.
Good.
But it might give you some additional information, and I'm curious to see what the presentation entails. I believe it's a couple of legislators, I think. I'll find out when I get there.
Representative McLean, at least.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So,
I have a tri-county planning body meeting during that time, so I won't be able to attend, but thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Schrader?
that's it.
Okay, Commissioner West?
Today, I'm going to dial back my rhetoric, though we know I have much of it, on this issue. Thank you, both of you. I mean, thank you for the work you're doing, the team you're building, the comments you're making. It's exceptional. Some of the best work I've seen come out of the county. Thank you. I fully support this letter. Super interested in what Commissioner Savas talked about with the emissions issue. I don't know if that's something to potentially add, or maybe down the road, you guys are doing robust work and it may not be needed, but I think that's such an interesting point that he brings up. And so, yeah, I look forward to seeing the more robust presentation on the 19th. I hope a lot of people attend and engage in that. And I don't know, you're just catching us up to speed a little bit today, am I right, with this long cover letter? But do you need any direction from us today?
So today we'll need you to basically authorize or approve your letter, which will then be augmented by the technical comments, which we'll be forwarding to you actually in 45 minutes with another staff report. And we'll be reviewing that next week.
Okay, so I will fully be supporting that request. So that's your ask today, and I just want to say, I'm so proud of the team we're building to really put up the quality fight that we need to put up against this effort of tolling, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding greenhouse emissions, on the second page of the letter under 3, tolling will not change speed. There is discussed greenhouse, to reduce greenhouse emissions, that this would not. I think it's probably covered, unless you want an entire paragraph on greenhouse. Would you like to
That's
comment?
exactly where we were thinking about putting the amendment as Commissioner Savas proposed. We'd add some additional minor language regarding hours traveled in there. And
Okay,
it'd be-
that's
it'd be
fine.
Minuscule change.
All right, we'll do
Good.
that. So, Commissioners, we can take all kinds of tacks and strategies to do this, but staff has come forward, hired experts in the field to present what we need to do. I agree the legislature is not acting responsibly. Commissioner Savas said 2 things, that there was House Bill 2098 on bridge funding coming up, but yet there was no meetings on transportation. I didn't understand what you meant by
I
that.
just learned about it, so there's that 2098-1
Okay.
version I just saw this morning.
Okay.
So I
So
believe
I'm-
it's a bill in progress.
When I was at the legislature, the legislators told me that was coming, and they thought it was going to be a $1 billion ask for the bridge. And then Savas and I sent through a presentation at AOC on Monday, and the budget for the tolling of the Columbia River Bridge was be $3 billion, coming from where? We know I-205 is going to be tolled first, so obviously they're going to use tolls on our citizens to do what? Have they promised us that they're laid in Stafford? Has that ever come up, staff? Have they ever promised, has ODOT ever promised us what the tolling on I-205 is going to do for Clackamas County transportation improvements?
The Oregon Transportation Commission declared early in this process that revenues generated on a corridor are to remain on the corridor. What is a corridor, is my question, I guess, in response to your question.
So-
So there was that confirmation from the OTC, but the financing plan more broadly has not been disclosed. There is no information about where those funds will
And
come from,
have
to my knowledge.
projects been identified in Clackamas County that will be paid for by the tolling from Clackamas County?
There are mitigation projects identified in the EA. I would say from a staff perspective, they're incomplete, they're insufficient, and there's a lot more issues with them that I won't go into, but there are some projects identified there.
So there seems to be the assumption that if we're going to toll I-205 in Clackamas County, that the Abernathy Bridge, by the way, that's already going under repairs, so that's a different funding source, obviously. But the 3 lanes, the expansion of 2 lanes to 3 lanes, that seems to have been lost in the conversation. No, what, yes, what?
Sorry, apologies. It's in the purpose and needs statement for the I-205 EA that they will construct the 3rd lane. It is specified in the purpose and needs statement that with the tolls, they will apply them to build the 3rd lane.
And associated improvements, including like seismic upgrades to crossings, things of that nature that'll go across that third
And there's a
lane.
bridge there, there's a, over the Tualatin Ridge, there's a couple of bridges there.
Correct.
Okay, fine. Well, fine, okay, but what comes first? Are they going to collect the tolls and they're going to pay for that, and then the rest of the tolls in Clackamas County are going to go to North Portland, where the alignment of the bridge goes from Portland into Vancouver. So our tolls collected in Clackamas County will be paying for the $3 billion tolls that needs to be collected for that bridge. And where else are tolls going to happen in Oregon to pay for that bridge too? So these are just questions, they're rhetorical. I think people should know about it. I don't expect you to answer them. Yes.
I think they're great questions because they show the lack of clarity between the various processes, tolling processes that are occurring. And so there just hasn't been, that's where our discussion is around, why don't you consolidate all these processes so there's a clearer picture, the total impact. Because right now you're getting the impact from I-205, and they're having this regional tolling discussion. It's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, as Mike discussed with me this morning, you may have a little bit of impact from I-205, but that may compound itself with other tolling exercises. And so why isn't there a more holistic look at it? So.
And there needs to be, and I'm going to say again, not all lanes should be tolled at the same time. We need respite. Oregonians need respite. I have a little story I'm going to tell since I have the time. I have a friend who came up from California 9 months ago, and last week she got a bill for a toll. And so I was really curious about it, and it was a toll bridge just east of Oakland and north of Walnut Creek, a little tiny estuary bay that needed to be crossed. And that toll bridge was constructed in 1964 with a 25-cent toll. And then it went up to 35 cents. And then the toll went up to $1, one way. This is all one way. And then the toll went up to $3. And it had stayed static at $3, and this bridge had been long paid for. Then the California State Legislature, in January of 2022, raised the $3 toll to $7. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're looking at. Once tolls are implemented, there is no ceiling on what they can charge us. It will continue to grow, and it will continue to be a huge economic impact upon our citizens. We're slowly, or maybe fast, going the way of California. So we need to make sure, if they're going to be hell-bent on sticking it to Clackamas County citizens, that we need a lane that is not tolled. So as we move forward to this, there's been some suggestions that we do whatever. I think we need to concentrate, whatever commissioner wants to talk to legislators, fine. We need to be doing that, obviously, okay? But I think we need to continue with legal action. When is that coming? We need to continue with this process that staff has outlined. It's very deliberate, and I like it. I like the letter, with the one addition that Commissioner Savas found on gas emissions, that's totally fine. But this is so unacceptable, just so unacceptable. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just real quickly, I agree with your questions and your frustration. Our staff is that we've all elected officials have been asking questions that I know of and not getting that answer. And it seems to me that the impacts as a result of, if we had the answers, would be known, but they're not known because they haven't got the answers, so the EA is incomplete, right? The economic impacts are not clearly understood. And yeah, this is like, we just can't crack this barn door open on tolling. It's going to blow open, and the cost and the stacking, as I mentioned at the AOC as well, when they put RMPP, the next layer, that's not even evaluated either. That has impacts as well. So great questions and great work. So I move we approve the letter with amendments made. Chair.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the letter as presented with amendments regarding greenhouse gas emissions, and Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Dan.
Thank you so much. We'll be preparing an additional policy session packet, which will have the technical comments in them for you. We'll have them submitted in the next 25 minutes or whatever that might look like.
And what are you?
And there, pardon me, the letter will, our technical 40-page letter will be a part of that packet, and will be submitted with another policy session. I just want to take a second. You look at me and us and give us the kind words about our team. I have nothing to do with this. I just want to call out, Jamie Stasny's great work. I want to call out Karen Burig's great work in the back. Hey, Karen, you did great. I want to call out, Steve Williams from our group. I want to call out Mike Besner and the amazing work he does. Everett Wiles done great work. County Council's done great work. We have a consultant team with us. You're right, this is a heavy lift, and all the Total and our regional partners, I don't want to leave them out as well. They have come together to really lead a very strategic discussion around this dialogue regarding the EA process for I-205, and I could not be happier with the team that we have and how they represent you and the citizens of Clackamas County. So anyway, we'll be back to see you next week on the 19th to run through a 40-page technical letter.
All right. Yeah, thank you for calling out your staff. We are most grateful for that, because we wouldn't be able to do what we do here unless you folks behind the scenes have been working doggedly on this. So what is the expectation for next week on the 19th?
We're simply, I think it's more of and it can be whatever you like, but essentially it's more of a time for you to at least see the 40 pages, if you choose to dive into the technical merits of that report, but more to be aware of it, and to approve it or alter it. Again, this is very technical language that has specificity regarding the language. You don't expect a lot of edits, but just for you to get your eyes on it.
So our action is we accept it or not?
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Just trying to manage expectations out there. All righty. Any further comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I just need to get a copy of that. I'll be, physically won't be here, but I'll try and attend. But in any case, I'm sure my assistant will make sure I get the entire document.
We will get it to the clerk to the board here shortly, and he'll be.
Good. Okay, so maybe I can get it earlier. And
It's this afternoon, Commissioner Schrader.
okay, great. All right. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Yes, Gary, any further discussion?
That's all for today, Chair.
Seeing no further business before this Board of County Commissioners, we are adjourned.